How's it going, everybody? This is Alex Caceres, and you're listening to Story of the Fight.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Story of the Fight. This is Will. We got Andrew Toasty Tosty in here filling in for Ramiro again, because Toasty is the guy you call when you need someone to fill in, whether it's for a fight, a podcast, commentary, whatever you need. Toasty's there for you. So thank you for joining. Please like, subscribe, do all that stuff. We're going to be talking about UFC Macau. They had a fight night over there in China. Petr Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo. But first, make sure you go to storyofthefight.com, click through all of our socials, follow all those. If you're joining us live, hop in the chat. It makes it a lot better. If you're joining us after the fact, we will have timestamps so you can jump to whatever fight you care about. Toasty socials, is it just at Toasty MMA on Instagram?
Yes, sir. I've been here so long, you already got it.
Yeah. Make sure you follow Toasty. He's a good follow. He's a great guy. But we could go ahead and jump right into it. We had UFC Macau. It was Petr Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo.
At 3 a.m.
At 3 a.m, our time in California, as Ramiro would call, in liberal California. Maybe that's why he's not here. That's probably why. Yeah, it was early in the morning. I did not stay up to watch this because I think the prelim started at midnight. Main card started at 3 a.m. But yeah, we had Petr Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo, which is a great fight. Figueiredo's up in weight now, former flyweight champ. Ganska says that's not Ramiro. And Genevieve says, I'm going to be needing a gold star for waking up this morning. Appreciate it.
Samesies.
Yeah, it is early. Yeah, Toasty found out last night that he's going to be on the show. So yeah.
While I was working at the bar till 3 a.m.
Brutal. Massive respect. But yeah, this fight, Petr Yan versus Deiveson Figueiredo, is such a cool matchup on paper. And there's a lot of those times where it's like, there's no way this is going to disappoint. And then sometimes it's like a dud and you're like, damn, they kind of canceled each other out. On paper, it was so good. This was not that. This was a great fight. This was a fantastic fight. I had to wake up 2 hours early for these prelims. Yeah, it's tough over there. But I like it better this way because it's like the flip side is having the fighters fight at 2 a.m, wherever they are, like in London.
What was that card that happened in the Middle East or whatever, where they were all at a different time zone and they all matched ours, and it was awful. Everyone couldn't get sleep and everybody was off.
Well, that was in the London card they just had with Tom Aspinall and Leon Edwards, right? It was 2 a.m. when they finally fought, and you're like, come on, man. I appreciate it because I can watch it at my time, but
yeah.
Ultimately, the fights are going to be better if they're fighting at whatever local time they're at. This fight I really, really enjoyed. Petr Yan, when he hits his flow state, does some of the coolest things I've seen in MMA. And sometimes it's I don't know if the judges don't see it or what, but he'll get to a decision and he doesn't get the nod. Meanwhile, he's doing all this cool shit and it's so effective and creative. And he was really kind of styling on Figueiredo for a lot of this fight. And then Figueiredo would have a big moment in almost each round, but not quite enough to steal a round.
Yeah.
I saw someone say this is a perfect example of a fight that someone won all 5 rounds. So you look at the scorecard and you're like, well, that was a blowout, but it doesn't really show how close each of those rounds kind of were. Or it makes it look like Figueiredo didn't do anything the whole fight if you look at the scorecards. But ultimately he had some really cool moments. First round, he hits that trip, the takedown on Petr Yan. Petr Yan does a great job. He gets he kind of gets the butterflies in and elevates them.
He does this. He does it from the guard where he throw the hooks in from, instead of locking up your guard, you'll release it and hook in the legs and sprawl them out so they can't get the base up to throw a punch down. So essentially it's you're not defending the hands, but you're still defending the hands and still being able to push off. And then he comes in with a butterfly and elevates them and just gets out from underneath. It was absolutely beautiful.
And it was great from Figueiredo too, because while he got elevated and he eventually loses the position, right, he ends up in that cradle and then takes it back from the cradle. But then Petr Yan isolates the hand, addresses the body triangle, turns into him, ends up on top, and you're like, dude,
Yep.
they're so good. This is
Yep.
cool to watch because the takedown was great. The elevation with the kind of like the pseudo butterfly hooks were great. Just hopping to the cradle for control to then take the back was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Sweeping from the back was great from Petr Yan. So you're like, man, this is some good shit. And then on the feet, Petr Yan's just so, like I said, creative. It's weird because like when you think of like creative strikers, a lot of people think of like Anderson Silva, Yair
Zabit,
Rodriguez, yeah, with like crazy wheel kicks and all this stuff, and like that is creative.
Salikhov.
Yeah, it's Salikhov. Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that, and that is creative. But then there's guys like Petr Yan, who's like a fundamentalist, and it's not like
He's like a
textbook.
Lomachenko guy, where like
Yeah,
everything he throws is beautiful and perfect, but nothing is like flashy and fancy.
yeah, and he's still creative with his like shot selection and his timing and his ability to disrupt somebody with those foot sweeps, and then while they're off balance, crack them with a right hook or something. And you're like, this guy's doing everything right, but it's not so textbook that it's predictable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, he just does so many cool things, and a lot of it is this long guard, like you see in this picture. He's getting cracked here by Figueiredo, but that long guard works so well for Petr Yan, and he got Figueiredo to start hand fighting and doing the same. And once Figueiredo started framing off and using that long guard as a return, that's when he found that uppercut, and he goes underneath the arms. Just fucking awesome, dude. Just so
Yep.
cool.
Just layering up his setups where like he'll set one thing up and get him to do one movement, and then as soon as he gets him to do that movement, he moves into another thing to get him to do the next thing. It's beautiful to watch. It was also really cool to see Petr have a fight where he didn't have to spend the first round and a half around like collecting data, which probably had a lot to do with the fact with Deiveson, like you kind of know what you're getting into. Like it's going to be pretty chaotic, but you know exactly what he's going to be throwing. It's not a lot of different stuff. So I don't think he had to register a lot of information, which really helped Petr in the beginning round to like just get off the blocks.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because Figueiredo, you kind of know what to expect in all of his fights. The takedown, I think, because he shot that takedown immediately. I think that kind of caught him
one
off guard.
kick and then shot.
Yeah, I think that kind of caught Petr off guard. But once he addressed that and he ended up on top, that wasn't really a threat from Figueiredo. You know, Figueiredo's not going to be shooting every round.
Yeah,
you know, that's not his game plan. The first one was a great surprise kind of deal, but after that, Petr Yan addressed he's so good. Once he addresses the grappling, you saw it in the Song Yadong fight too, who's like obviously at alpha male and stuff, so clearly his wrestling is going to be good.
Yep. He was a good wrestler before he got there too.
Yeah, exactly. And Petr, once he addresses that, his anti-grappling is fucking crazy, man. Because like even if he gets taken down, he's working to get off. And that was kind of the frustrating thing with the Merab fight was, you know, he was just stuck defending takedowns, like because he's fighting Merab, and that's what happens.
Yeah, because Merab's just going to throw a million of them until one of them sticks.
Yeah, and I'd like to see that rematch. Well, we'll keep talking about this fight. The scrambles were fucking cool as hell. Lots of cool sweeps. Yeah, blunderbuss takedowns and scrambles were so good.
That foot sweep that Petr does is so gorgeous. Like
so cool.
People in my gym try doing it, and it's like it looks like they're trying to like kick out the back of your kneecap. But the way Petr does it is just like it's like watching somebody put butter on toast. It's so smooth.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect way to say it, dude. Yeah, it's so smooth and it's so unpredictable. Like, you know, he always hits foot sweeps in his fights, so you know they're like a threat. But he does such a good job of making you focus on the hands and that long guard and the framing and stuff. Yeah, he hides it perfectly because you don't know if he's framing off and he's going to do this jumping knee like he landed a few times, or is he going to hit that foot sweep, or is he going to land that uppercut under your long guard? Like, he's so good at disguising and things like that. Fucking a treat to watch. And I don't want to harp too much on him because I thought Figueiredo fought a good fight too. And Figueiredo, similar to the adjustment of all adjustments, the Stipe versus DC, because DC uses that same kind of mummy guard, and Stipe addresses that by going to the liver halfway through the fight. Figueiredo did a great job of going to the body of Petr Yan and eventually hurt him in the fourth round, where he stings him. I think it was like a long cross, and then he sits him down. And as Petr gets up, he fucking drills that knee to the body, and then a massive right hook to the body. And Petr like takes a step back. He's got a great poker face, but you could tell in that moment it was like, oh, he's compromised right now. This is tough. It's a tough position to be in. And it's just a great fight. Just an absolutely great fight. I watched it again this morning right before we went live.
Yeah. And Deiveson looks like he is in the right weight class. Like he doesn't look absolutely demolished before going into these fights, which is also a big thing about, like we talked about earlier, where like, Deiveson's going to shoot, but he's not going to shoot like Merab style where it's like 100 times a fight, because he just like, bro, you're depleting yourself so much. You're losing like 50% of your body mass. There's no way you have enough energy to shoot 100 times. I think now that he's got his like body mass underneath him, we might find a bit of a difference in terms of his style, just like going out there and shooting a bit more than he does.
Yeah, and he always had to fight so reserved, right?
Yeah.
At flyweight, where he'd wait and wait and wait, and then he'd crack with something big. But a lot of his fights were spent waiting.
Yeah.
And this one a little bit, but I think that was more to do with Petr Yan's output and his mixing of everything, that he just was kind of frozen a little bit. He was able to get stuff off, but I think he was a little frozen at times.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at him; he's not like undersized at this weight class whatsoever.
They looked equal, like in terms of their body mass. Like when I think it was like the first 30 seconds, that was like the first thought that popped in my head. I was like, oh, they look like they should be fighting each other.
Yeah, and I like that, because Figueiredo, like you said, definitely was depleting himself at flyweight. That power still carried, so he was knocking people out at flyweight. So that was cool to see. But I think we will see the best of Figueiredo at this weight class. The only downside is I think he turns 37 in like soon, and at bantamweight, age is like the real killer, right? Especially in the UFC. It's tough, but Petr, I think he's just barely 31 or something like that. They're talking about potentially having him skip, right, and go to the straight to a title fight.
I wouldn't say I would say him and Merab are, because Merab is doing everything he possibly can to not fight Usman. But I don't think the UFC is really entertaining that idea too much. The only thing I think that would make that happen is if they did a show in like Russia or something like that, where it's like, okay, we're not going to really put Merab versus some other person. They're going to put like the fan favorite of that area.
Yeah.
And while Usman is Russian, like I don't think the Russian fan base is behind him more than they are behind Petr.
Well, let's be real. Petr is fucking exciting. He's so exciting, and he's so good. The only thing that hurts him, I think, is the fact that it is like their rematch, right? And he got pretty much like shut out. Hey, shout out DL. Thanks for joining, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's tough, dude. Austin says, weirdly enough, this fight reiterated just how insane Merab and his pace are, because Yan has always been insane, and he just shut him down entirely. Yeah, but I don't know. I think a rematch would go differently.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because Petr doesn't have to spend the first minute and a half or round and a half round, like kind of making adjustments and reads, and then trying to like implement that while also on the back foot the whole time. I think he's gonna do one of two things. He would either put Merab on his back foot and not allow him to take as many shots as he wants to, or he's gonna be so far away that like these shots are gonna like almost be entries to Petr being able to like strike on him as he like comes in.
Well, that uppercut in this fight was exactly that, right? He eventually dropped Figueiredo with that uppercut. Dude, there was I rewatched it this morning, and at 4 minutes and 30 seconds of round 5, Petr throws an uppercut that misses, and you can literally hear it on the broadcast. It sounds like a kung fu movie, when they're like throwing combinations in a kung fu, and it's like, and like the punches are like, it literally sounds like that. And I'm like, holy shit, that uppercut is insane. It's crazy.
There were a couple of times throughout the card that it almost sounded like when we were doing COVID Apex cards and we heard like all the thuds, that like there was a lot of that tonight. It was really interesting. I don't know if that had to do with like the stadium or the fact that the crowd is like more respectful and quiet when like these guys are actually competing. But there was a lot of like sound effects in this entire card. And like you said, that fight had that uppercut he almost landed was pretty crazy.
Dude, yeah, and maybe they're just miking the cage differently, right? And it's picking things up like that. Yeah, Blunderbro says great moment at the end with them both on the cage. Yeah, there it is. I mean, yeah, it was just all around fucking awesome fight, and it kind of sucks that it happened at 3 a.m. Pacific because a lot of people probably didn't see it. Hey, shout out James, saying what's up, boys. Thanks for joining, James. Yeah, the time zone, it's better for the fighters, but I there's a lot of people who don't want to watch it unless it's live. There's like a big section of the fan base that are
Yeah,
like, oh, if I already missed it, I'll just find out the results and like,
and that'll be
take,
it.
yeah, I'll take people's word for what happened in it, kind of deal. This is one that people should go back and watch if they missed it because, damn, it was good. It's good fun. But yeah, we could. Yeah, what do you think? Does Petr Yan get a title fight after this?
I don't think he deserves one, but I wouldn't be surprised. The UFC like does stuff like this all the time. You like if logic lived in MMA, then we would be in a much different world. And like I like there's no telling what Dana's gonna do. If somebody pays him enough money, he'll fight his grandma.
Yeah,
Just dig her up.
So Umar beats Corey Sanhagen, right? Austin says, "How does this version of Yan do against O'Malley? You guys think? Because I still think he won their first fight, and a rematch could be interesting." I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm in the minority, but when I watched that fight, I actually had Sean winning that fight. I know it's very controversial, but I had O'Malley winning that fight. Um, it's hard to say. Sean has clearly like achieved new heights since then, so it'd be interesting to see. I'd love to see it. It's a great fight. It was great the first time. It would probably be great the second time.
Any Piotr fight will look different the second time he fights it. Again,
Yeah,
it's just
that's a
like
good point. Yeah,
he has this thing where he just has to take measurements or like just like figure out what he's feeling in there. And I feel like anytime he fights a fighter for a second time, it's going to be a whole lot less of that and a whole lot more of like third round and on from the first fight.
yeah, just starting off
Yeah.
where he left off the first fight, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
a
don't
good
think
point.
Sean's able to do that. I think Sean would have to take
Yeah.
reads within the fight.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I would like to see it. Maybe they do that if they do Umar versus Marab, then they can do Yan versus O'Malley because O'Malley's he's probably ranked like 1 or 2, right? I'd imagine just losing the belt. Yeah, he's ranked number 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Umar's
He
2.
hasn't fought since then, so there would be no reason to move him.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe you do that. Petr Yan versus O'Malley rematch. The winner of that gets a title fight against the winner of Umar versus Marab.
The only downfall is you still have to wait for Sean to take that sabbatical for that surgery he's talking about taking. So
Is that not a real surgery?
well, I mean, it's like if you needed this surgery and it's going to put you out to a certain amount of time, you wouldn't be entertaining all these like Marab was talking about getting a rematch. He's like, "Oh, then fine, then we'll do the rematch. We'll do the rematch." Like, no, you need surgery. Go do your surgery. Stop talking. Stop taking up space for other people.
Wait a second, I thought you needed time.
Yeah, exactly. It's always like that.
Hey, shout out Ghost. If you want to learn more about Petr Yan's game, Ghost has a ton of very cool animations of some of the slick shit that Petr Yan does. So check out his page. And what does it say? O'Malley won that fight against Yan. Agreed. Thank you. I find it funny that Yan versus Aljo. Yan fans said there was no damage for top control, but against O'Malley, the same people wanted top control with no damage. That's a good point. That's a good. People love to pick and choose.
Splitting hairs. Yeah. Splitting hairs. Look, all the time.
Just a couple weeks ago, my boy Eddie Avasolo fought Yunus Raba.
Saw him yesterday.
Did you? He's such a
he was at my gym.
Nice. Yeah, he's a good guy. I need to actually shoot him a message soon. I have a video I want to show him. But in his fight, he lost the first 2 rounds, and then he won the 3rd round. And I was like, on the streets, that's a win. But if the roles were reversed and he won the first 2 rounds and lost the 3rd, I'd be like, yeah, he took 2 out of 3.
Yeah,
people play favorites, and I do it myself.
Yeah, but biases are a thing. It's just a matter of being able to admit that you have them. Like when you go around talking about like, oh no, this is how it is. It's like, I mean, we all know why you're saying that.
Yeah.
Let's just all be honest about it.
Yeah, let's call it spade a spade.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could move on. What was the co-main of this? The co-main was Yan Xiaonan. Yeah, Yan Xiaonan versus Tabatha Ricci. We probably will not spend too much time on this fight because it took
31 note.
Yeah, it took Tabatha Ricci, I think, 9 minutes to land her 3rd strike in the fight.
Yeah,
an all stand-up affair.
Yeah,
It was tough.
Now,
I don't think she landed a punch in the first round.
Yeah, and that being said, she was trying to get like takedowns and stuff and like trying to throw some strikes, but I mean, it was very obvious what the game plan in going in was. And I mean, if you don't have some sort of change, if something goes wrong or doesn't go your way, man, I don't know what to tell you. You gotta have something on the back burner for like whether or not something goes wrong.
Yeah, and the problem is she didn't really know how to like enter any differently. So like every time she was
Yeah.
entering, Xiaonan would just crack her with her cross, and she just got stopped in her tracks. And she was like, "Okay, I'll try again in a second." But it was the same entry over and over and over again. So Xiaonan was able to just set, blast her with the cross, set, blast her with the cross. I
Yeah.
mean, it was pretty, like you said, pretty one note.
Yeah. It also didn't help that I think they were in offsetting stances. And like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Also, that happened a lot throughout the card. I don't know why that was. There was like 5 or 6 fights where they were offsetting stances, but
Yeah.
Tabatha didn't do like anything to like attack that front leg. It was like everything was like these shots from like a million miles away, and she didn't do
Yeah.
anything to set up that front leg to try to like, I don't know, kick it or maybe try
Yeah.
a low single and then like move off to a double or something. It just seemed like the same thing over and over.
Well, yeah, what you can do, like if you're Tabatha Ricci, like obviously this is like armchair stuff, right? But well, it's different from you. You're actually a fucking fighter. But like you said, offset stances mean that that lead leg is there to be. It's easier to pick up that lead leg for like
Yeah,
a
just
single
touch
leg.
it.
Yeah, and even if you don't finish the single leg, you can use the single leg to drive someone up against the fence. On impact, you can switch to a double leg. You just pull them
Yep.
off the fence, push them up against the fence again, grab the double, collect both legs if you can, or even just to shake it up and get some control time so you're not getting blasted. Then you can work your way up from the single leg into a clinch position and strike from there if you want, or break and now you're inside the cross so you can start landing your shots. The jab isn't quite there as much as it is in closed stance matchup. So if it's open southpaw versus orthodox, the cross is what you want to be throwing for the most part. And Yan Shannon clearly understood that because that's what she was cracking her with over and over again.
Every time.
Every single time.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, if she's just gonna run into it every single time, the fight doesn't need to look pretty. You're winning.
Yeah, exactly. And what does Ryu say? Ryu says, "I sent Ghost scouting report to Tabatha Ricci. Clearly didn't follow it. Why do you guys think Ricci didn't even try to replicate the Whaley game plan?" I'm sure her coaches had a game plan for her that they believed in.
Yeah.
And to what Ryu's talking about, for those of you that don't know, Ghost does scouting reports for Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili fought Yan Xiaonan, so I'm sure Ghost put together a pretty good scouting report specifically for Yan Xiaonan, which, if that's made available to you and you're fighting her, probably check it out, right? What is Ghost says that was Yan versus Ricci. Fight was frustrating to watch. To beat Yan, you need to pressure, calf kick, then draw out and duck under Jan's right hand. But what do I know about that? Yeah, what do you know about that?
How dare you speak on this?
Yeah, it's some fan. Austin says Zhang probably dog walks Shannon. Honestly, she's racked a few wins and really wants that fight. But man, I don't know how she wins that one because I see her getting dominated everywhere. Well, she had some moments of success against Zhang Weili when they fought, but for the most part, it was pretty dominant from Zhang Weili.
It also seems like that's like a reoccurring theme in women's MMA. Like the rosters are so thin that like they should have some ladder jumping to get to the title fight, but then like the dip off from like number one contender to like the next person is drastic. Like, to be honest, I don't think Manon is gonna do really anything when she gets her title fight, but like objectively, who do you put instead of her for the title fight? And it seems to be that way for a few of them. Like who was the one that fought Zhang, and like it was like 5 rounds of just absolute destruction the whole time. I think she got like 3 strikes the whole time.
I don't remember.
It was a little Brazilian girl, but like I'm like, dude, some of these fights, like you got to start hiring some fighters, signing some fighters, and getting these divisions set up to where we can actually care about someone's rise within the division as opposed to like, oh, 2 fights, title fight.
Yeah, but that's the hard thing is, like you said, once a champ starts racking off title defenses, the barrier for entry for a title shot should probably drop. Otherwise, we're going to see the same matchups over and over again. And then, but the flip side of that coin is you get some people who are clearly not supposed to be there.
100%.
And I'm not talking about that with Tabatha, Ricci, and Xiaonan. I think this was just a game plan gone wrong type deal. But yeah, Lemos says Austin. Ganskow says, why is the champ so inactive right now? From what I understand, this is rumors. This is not God. Don't take this as gospel. But Zhang was supposed to fight. They wanted to have her fight Alexa Grasso, I believe, at UFC 300. That fight didn't happen, obviously. And then because that didn't shake out, then they were like, Grasso's going to fight. Oh, we lost Toasty. Grasso's going to fight Valentina Shevchenko. Then they have to do that whole ordeal, and they want Zhang Weili versus Shevchenko. So they're trying to get her like a super fight almost, and that's kind of why she's been out. It's not Zhang Weili has kind of talked about how she wants to be fighting, and they haven't been able to make up a matchup for her. So I'm assuming they're still trying to make that super fight, but now you have Manon Fiorot, and she's trying to get her fight with Shevchenko, which I think she probably earned just due to certain criteria. But yeah, that's kind of where she's been. It's more so on UFC management, I think. But Ghost says, I can tell you for sure that Grasso versus Zhang wasn't in the books. Interesting, because I thought I saw Zhang talking about that in an interview where she said that that she was supposed to be fighting her, that they tried to make it happen or something. But you would know better than I. Toasty's back.
I'm back. See, I thought you were gone, so I was sitting here talking to myself for a minute. I'm like, oh this is awful.
I've been there, dude. I've been there numerous times. Sometimes, you just got to let it roll until you realize, or until something closes or something like that.
I was about to leave the chat. Thank God.
Oh, man. Ghost says, no, she wanted that Grasso fight for 300. Oh, okay, gotcha. So the UFC wasn't trying to book it. Yeah, I don't know then. But, I mean, that's really all we can talk about on this fight. There's not too much to be said other than, like you said, Yan Xiaonan did what she was supposed to do in this fight, and why do anything else when it's working? Yeah, I don't know. But we could go ahead and move on to my boy.
Oh, that's what happened. My internet went out.
Oh, that'll do it.
That'll do
it. Yeah. But we had Muslim Salikhov versus Song Kenan. Yeah, this was vintage Muslim Salikhov. Oh, did we lose him again? Yeah, Muslim Salikhov. He's got like 3 tricks, right? Everybody knows the 3 tricks, but he does them so well. He's had a long career even before he switched to MMA. He's had a long career, so he's a little bit weathered coming into his UFC career, and he's kind of traded wins and losses and things like that. But you just never know if he's going to pull off those tricks. The shoulder feint to bait somebody in, the trips that he never follows up with on the ground, and then the wheel kick. Those are like his big moves: the shoulder feint, the trips, and the wheel kick. And he's so good. Hey, Toasty's back again.
That was my phone reconnecting to my internet that came back up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I figured. But yeah, in this fight, there's a little bit of a feeling out process. You see the shoulder feints from Muslim Salikhov. You see him catch a high kick and trip him, and you're like, I know people have talked about this in the past with Salikhov, because in MMA, where he comes from, the trip is great. But in MMA, the trip is even better because you can end up on top and you can steal parts of rounds. But he never follows people up when he trips them. He trips them, he lets them get back up because he wants to strike. And the dump is something else, right? And sometimes maybe he could have gotten some wins in some of his losses if he did follow up on the ground and get some ground control, land some elbows, something like that, and capitalize on the trip a little bit more. But it's just not his game. And in this one, he dumped him, he tripped him, and he's like, all right, get back up, let's strike. And I was like, please follow him down so we can get a win, my boy. And then he's like, why? Because I can just throw this wheel kick.
Oh, beautiful wheel kick that had
so
absolutely no show. I was like, I watched it like 4 or 5 times, like in that sequence. I'm like, he's got to like turn his hips or something. And I'm just like, nope, it's just straight from his stance. No show, no tell. Just, he maybe got, Song to like move a little bit, like to into that kick. But otherwise, like, bro, he had no show on it. And the whole fight, if you watch, he didn't throw like any head kicks. He didn't throw like too many things to the head other than his straight punches. He was setting up that kick so much with the leg kicks to the outside. And then like he got him so focused on the legs that as soon as he twitched, he's like, oh, I'm going for your head now.
Dude, and obviously when someone throws a wheel kick, ideally you want to crash into them and smother that kick. Song Kenan leaned back a little bit to try to evade what's coming, and that's a death sentence. Ghost says Slacky said that more people should high kick Salikhov so he will do more cool stuff like kick catches. Yeah, seriously, because they're so cool. It's really cool to watch. His trips are fucking awesome. Jamie says hot take, but standing next to Song, Salikhov looks out of shape. Give him a break, Genevieve.
I mean,
he's like 40. Yeah, he's 40.
That's also most people standing next to Kenan.
True.
That man, most Chinese fighters look like they're sculpted from marble.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah, absolutely insane. It's almost like they have a better health society over there. It's crazy. It's almost like they don't eat chips.
Yeah, could be. But yeah, one thing that you can see from Salikhov is a lot of people will throw wheel kicks just to throw them, and it's like a Hail Mary type thing. But like you said, he sets them up, and you can see his technique where as he pivots and as he once he finally fully turns with his planted foot, you see him extend it up, right? And like almost hop into it at the end to just gain that extra push on it, the extra torque on it. It's flawless technique. And I mean, yeah, he dropped him. There's actually, Rich, I did this for you specifically. There's some good shots of the sequence if you want to blow through them like a flip book, because I know you like to do that. Come on.
There you go.
Stuff, that's great stuff.
Yeah, it's also like the announcers. Who was the third in with Michael Bisping and what's her face? It was Fitzgerald. Gooden. So Gooden, I think it was like at 3:30, 3:30 left in the first round. He's like, and Salikhov really likes the spinning stuff. I'm sure that somebody's gonna clip it where like he says that, and then like 2 minutes later just hits the most beautiful spinning kick ever. Yeah. It also like popped in my head how annoying some MMA fans are that like that Askarov spinning back fist that looks sloppy and ugly, while it was cool to see, was super sloppy. This wheel kick was perfect and beautiful, and it's not going to get anywhere near the traction.
True. Oh, you mean the Sharp Bullet one, the double back fist? Yeah. Well, because that was like I've never even seen that shit before. But this
exactly.
Wheel kick, like Austin says, is there a type of strike that's more satisfying for a KO than a wheel kick? A flying knee maybe, but spinning kicks like that never fail. Like Edson Barbosa versus Terry Edom, right? Is like the OG, like incredible. Like they're so good. Bahamondes got one. The things just make it look like he got bitch slapped by a foot. And like look how gangster this picture is, dude. I fucking love Muslim Salikhov. Rio says
the
in
pictures
general,
in this card were really good.
Yeah, shout out Jeff Batari. I think he was like the only UFC photographer there because he got some great shots. Rio says in general there was a lot of interesting techniques from Sando when they go to China. Yeah, 100%. I mean, how many times did we get a side kick to the body, to the face, even?
There was that like sweet chin music kick that somebody hit like straight to the dome. That was sick.
Well, Xiaonan landed one against Ricci, and then maybe that's a good segue because this next fight had one. We had Gabriella Fernandes versus Wang Tong. And look, everybody knows the hype train right now. She took the UFC by storm, their socials by storm, because she did the Joker and then she got a nasty knockout in her debut. She beat Shevchenko, and everyone's like, this is like the female Alex Pineda to Shevchenko's Izzy, right? And she's going to come from kickboxing. She beat her back in the day. She's going to come over, and now she's going to win. She does her whole coin flip, pulls the gun out, shoots her. And Gabriella's like, I don't know what's happening. Hilarious video.
I don't understand any of this.
Yeah, she's like, oh, coin flip, aha, cool. And then the gun, she's like, my gun? It's so awkward, dude. But yeah, Wang Tong. Is it pronounced Wang Tong?
Bro, you've been saying these names, and I have not wanted to touch any of these with a 10-foot pole. I said song on the last one because that's the only English word I could say.
We'll call her the Joker. That's her nickname, right?
There we go.
Yeah, and for most of this fight, she pretty much just had Fernandes up against the fence, and she was lighting her up with punches to the body, punches to the head, kicks all over her body. I mean, she was getting chewed up for most of this fight. She'd have a couple things that she'd land right. And careful, Rich, before we go to the next picture, because there was only like 5 pictures. Shout out Jeff Batari, only took like 5 photos of this one. But I get it. They're probably all underneath him, so not a great angle for a photographer. But yeah, most of this fight, beautiful stuff from Wang Tong, where she's, like I said, just lighting her up to the body, to the head, leg kicking her, side kicking her in the face. Just beautiful technique. And really, you could tell this is one of those fights where she was like, I am so much better than this girl. I'm just going to style on her and not even care what's coming back.
Yeah.
Until
hands were at her hips the whole fight.
Yeah, until she eats a high kick as she's coming in and it stuns her. And you're like, oh no. She drops her. There's the high kick.
Yeah.
Beautiful. She
Beautiful
gets
placement.
Up, and instead of being like, I'm going to clinch for a second, she's like, I'm going to start trading with this girl. And she starts swinging and banging. And she gets cracked by this huge left hand from Gabriella that puts her down. She jumps on her, takes her back. And at that point, I'm like, oh, well, she's not surviving this. I think there was like a minute and a half left or something.
There was a minute 24.
Yeah. She takes her back, gets the choke in. Hey, shout out Combat Sports Today. I hear there's a big interview dropping from Combat. Maybe they already has, actually, because Eastern time is different than California time. But shout out, everybody should check out Combat Sports Today. It's a great page on socials and their YouTube channel. But yeah, ends up belly down, right? And then sinks the choke in.
Hands stuck underneath her chest. Can't do anything about it.
Yeah, it doesn't get the tap. Yeah, she went out, right?
I don't think she went out. I think it was one of those where like she couldn't defend herself. She was probably going to go out, so that's probably why she didn't complain about it. But she wasn't unconscious. She like got up relatively quickly after she was released from that choke.
Yeah, because she kind of like collected her knees a little bit right after, right?
Yeah. But I don't think she was unconscious, but I think like she knew that fight was over. Like she knew.
Yeah, and Go says Fano made this read on the fight site. Tong would come in with her mechanics in the pocket were very poor. She would exit straight back, and that left straight while she was leaning back is what caught. Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing. Like you could tell there was like this girl's not on my level. I'm not gonna really have to care about what's coming back from her. And yeah, big learning moment. Big learning moment.
But also, like, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before about how thin these rosters are. Like, I think this is a good thing for the UFC because eventually, if this was going the way it was going, like, we're already talking about her fighting Shevchenko. She doesn't have a number next to her name. Like, she's going to get 2 more fights. Let's imagine that she had won this fight. She's going to get maybe 2 more fights and be in a title fight. That's insanity.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, because everybody, like you said, the parallel with Alex Pereira, right? So,
and just because it worked out for Pereira doesn't mean that it was like I know I'm in the minority here in terms of like most of the people who watch MMA, but just because it worked out does not mean that it was deserved. Like Alex, same thing with Izzy too. Like when you really think about it, like they had very few fights leading up into their like title contention runs. Like they had, I think he had 4 fights before he was a ranked fighter, where like most other MMA fighters like have a long way to go until they even crack the top 15.
Yeah, no, true. It's a good point. Austin says it is nice to see how the power has developed amongst female fighters, though. For real, as people always complain they have pillow hands and are boring, but not
anymore.
They can crack. Yeah, it's changed. It has definitely changed. It's evolved. Blunderup says, I love wins like this when someone gets tired of getting their ass handed to them. And I think, I believe I saw that Fernandes by submission was like plus 3,000.
Wonderful.
This fight.
Absolutely wonderful. My mom made a bet on the last pay-per-view that Paul Craig was going to submit Bo Nichols, and that was like a minus 10,000 or some stupid number.
At those odds, it's worth it, right? He throws up these crazy submissions. Genevieve says, I like Gabby a lot. Just like to see her a little bit more forward pressure. Yeah, she was basically relegated to the fence for most of this fight up until even the finish. She was up against the fence, so she got the finish. But her hands looked okay when she did go. She looked like, I mean, obviously she cracked her, right?
Yeah.
Rayo says, do you think the game planning in women's MMA is really bad, except for a few, of course? Yeah, like specifically like Zhang Weili, I don't know who they have making her game plans. They're pretty bad.
It's
Some guy
also
on
like
Twitter is making the game plans for her, and no, I'm just kidding. They're really good because it's gross.
it's some guy on Twitter. His name is Will.
No.
It's also like it's not like it's hard to like articulate this. It's not like women's MMA is like a different like class. Like it's not like they're in a different room and they have like different people make. It's still the same coach. Like if they're at a fight camp, it's usually like or their husband or whatever. But it's also like a matter of like how much ability your fighter has or willingness to put forward that game plan. There's a lot of men MMA fighters that are willing to just walk through, take punches to give punches. And I don't think that same number exists in women's MMA. So to game plan, like that's less of an option for women's MMA. So I think like the options for game planning is the problem, less than like the people making the game plan.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like that will only come as time progresses, right?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
It's still relatively new.
Yeah, more fighters are willing to do certain things, then like those options arise more.
Yeah, and you see the success of the people who do take those chances and things like that.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, it opens the door, right?
Kind of goes into the same thing for the women's power. It's like women are more likely to be in these exchanges because they're more willing to, and that's what gets a lot of these like women building up their power, building up their strikes to be able to land those knockout blows.
Yeah, that's fair. And Ghost, it's also the person executing the game plan. Got to consider that too. Yeah, sometimes you have like that's what you're saying. Really, like you can come up with a great game plan, but if the fighter's not willing to do it or not capable, then kind of goes out the window.
Exactly.
We could move on. We had Carlos Ulberg versus Volkan No Time Oezdemir. This fight,
no time, more like no angles.
Damn, dude.
It's just straight. Like all he did, the whole fight. Like I think it was like maybe 2 minutes into the second round. I was like, Oezdemir just keeps over progressing every time. Ulberg will stop movement. Like Oezdemir would have these sequences where he'd push Ulberg against the cage. Like he'd come forward pressure, finally get him up against the cage. He's like, okay, there's nowhere for him to go. And instead of not over pursuing and just pushing past him, like Ulberg would stop moving and then change to a different angle. And Oezdemir was like, no, we're all going forward. Aren't we all just supposed to keep going this direction? And then Ulberg will pop out at a different angle, hit him a couple times and then move out and then reset the sequence and just do that like 10 times around.
Yeah. And he just constantly jumping in with that lead hook over and over again. And it would land every once in a while, but it was like landing here almost. And Ulberg was able to just kind of strongman it. He never really seemed like it hurt him, even though he did get cracked a couple times. And I was like, ooh. But yeah, it was. I don't know if maybe he thought that he would kind of fold under that, because like really the only tape of Ulberg, like being in tough spots, was it Kennedy and Zechiku, was it?
Yeah, when he's on his back foot.
Well, he just like gassed out from beating him up so bad, and then it was Kennedy and Zechiku, and then he wilted kind of in that fight, and so maybe Oezdemir was like, that's the path, just pressure, and just go at him like a train, and maybe he'll collapse under this, and that was kind of what he tried.
Didn't take effect. Yeah, maybe,
didn't work
but it definitely didn't work.
No, Ulberg has leveled up a bit. Genevieve says, I don't know, I like Ulberg a lot. He just sits in the fucking pocket and eats it, which got him in trouble in the third round, but I like his style. Yeah, he's fun. I mean, he's fun. He's limited, but it's light heavyweight. So, like, a limited fighter at light heavyweight is still can still be promising.
Yeah. It's also a bad sign to say, like, we're describing him as limited, and he's out here describing himself as I can fight Alex Pereira. I don't think those two match up. Like, I think that's a bad idea for you, Carlos.
Yeah, well, I mean, how many left hooks did he eat from Oezdemir in this fight? So many.
Yeah.
But you don't really eat those if it's Alex throwing them.
Yeah.
That was like the big thing that stood out to me is like it was such a left hook heavy game plan from Oezdemir, and even with that being like kind of all he was doing, he was still landing it.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that Alex is going to land that left hook on Ulberg, you're crazy.
Yeah, and it's going to take a whole lot less than what Oezdemir threw at him.
Yeah. Yeah. Ghost says it would have been so funny if Ulberg caught him with the hook off the jab. But that only happens when fighters sprint at him. Yeah. Who was the last guy he fought who just like ran at him and like ran past him almost right into the fence and he cracked him? Was that?
I don't know. I don't got that one.
So funny. Yeah, left hook versus left hook. Yeah, I mean, look, Ulberg versus Alex Pereira would be a very fun fight to watch in terms of action, but I don't think it would be a very fun fight to be in if you're Carlos Ulberg.
Yeah, and I also don't think the result would be. I think 8 times out of 10 that fight ends the same way.
Yes, it was Alonzo Menafield. Absolutely hilarious.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Yeah, no disrespect, but it was fucking hilarious. But yeah, that's basically. I thought someone was gonna get finished in this fight, and instead they just kind of fucking swanged and banged. But it was decent. It's good.
Another one of those fights. Another one of those fights where the mics picked up a lot of absolute thuds through the whole fight.
True. Yeah, that's true. We are 45 minutes in, and we are not even done with the main card yet. Some of these will go quick, though, actually, now that I'm looking at them. This one we had Ozzy Diaz versus Zhang Mingyang. Yeah, Zhang hits hard, dude. This dude cracks. Another light heavyweight.
And Diaz decided to throw every single strike with his head. Like, dude just came in with, like, lunging forward with his head every time. Man. And I'm like, man, like the first couple of times he did it, I was like, okay, maybe he's just getting like loose or like into the fight. But my word, dude, look at that. His head is so far past his hips. Dog, you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah, and that was the thing I was thinking of the whole time, because I was like, first of all, it's light heavyweight, so maybe him spamming this overhand will eventually get through and he'll get a finish out of this, but he absolutely should not win by doing this. And Zhang Mingyang was like, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then he stepped in, met him with an elbow as he's leading with his face.
Jeez, what a picture.
Yeah, great photo. Blood Rose says when the shorts are rolled up that far, you know you're in for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he cracks him with the elbow, he drops him, and that's pretty much it. It was only like 2 minutes into the fight, probably, right? What was it?
Yeah, it was relatively quick.
2:25. Yeah, cracks him. Big hometown win, right? Andrew's right. He was overextending big time for no reason whatsoever. What do you mean, dude? The more you overextend, the more power.
Yeah, for sure.
Clearly. But yeah,
I mean, you only weigh 215 pounds. I mean, you got to get every bit of inch you can.
God, yeah, it was very frustrating. Austin says shades of Super Leg versus Haggerty with that elbow. Total flashbacks, not gonna lie. Yeah, people are kind of starting to realize they can crash into somebody who's doing that with elbows, and they're quicker.
Yep.
War Taco did it, obviously, like right after Super Leg, he called him out. It's always been there, but it seems like maybe people are starting to realize. And then that was the last of the main card fights. So we've been doing picks for just the main cards on our Instagram, trying to grow our Instagram. So please follow us. And I want to give a special shout out. I don't know if he even knows this yet. But Blunderbub was like, if you guys are doing picks, we need Rich's vibe picks. And Rich just picks his fights off of the names, just vibes. So we got me and Ramiro both yawns. He went Muslim Salikhov. I went Song Kenan because I was like, he's 40, even though I wanted Muslim to win. We both went Wang Tong. Obviously, who in their right mind would pick Fernandes? We both picked Ulberg. And then
man named Rich.
Ramiro picked Ozzy Diaz. and I picked Zhang Mingyang. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2. Ramiro went 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 as well. So me and Ramiro tied. But if you look over here to the side, we had Rich's vibe picks, and he went both Jans. He went Salikhov. He went Fernandes. He went Oezdemir and Zhang. So Rich almost went 6-0.
Vibes.
Rich went 5-1 to Ramiro and I's 4-2. Literally,
no knowledge.
Let's
Just
go.
vibes.
Didn't I go 5-1 on the live stream or whatever that was?
Yeah, you did good. You've been doing great, dude.
Oh, look at this stretching, pretending he's not even trying.
Meanwhile,
we'll put him in for Ramiro.
I don't need a scout
Meanwhile,
team.
Cut to Rich. We're gonna send every time I send him the list. He's like, I just pick off the names, and realistically, he's like messaging a bunch of people and watching a bunch of tape, and he's like, all right, these are my picks. Fucking hilarious, dude.
He's actually making bets on the side. He's a millionaire. We just don't know it.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking hilarious, dude. Watching it, I was like, when Fernandes won, I was like, son of a bitch, dude. Rich got it.
You can't keep getting away with this.
Yeah, this is a Rich quote. I like the cage because it's a circle. It's just vibing his way to this life. Fucking awesome, dude. Shout out Rich the Casual. Pretty soon we're gonna have to stop calling him Rich the Casual.
Nah. He's gonna get that tattooed on him somewhere.
It's a great name, dude. It's a term of endearment. But we can move on to the prelims. We're going to skip the feature prelim because I did not enjoy it, and we're 50 minutes into this episode. So we're going to skip to DongHun Choi versus Kiru Sahota. This was Road to UFC finale, right? This was flyweight. Flyweight's so fucking good, by the way. It was great all card. And this one, Kiru Sahota fighting like he's the flyweight Tony Ferguson without the intensity.
Oh, that man, that was the weirdest body movements I've ever seen in somebody. Like, that was so awkward, dog.
So awkward and so long, and he knows it. And he's fighting like a praying mantis or some shit.
That's a very good description. He looks exactly like a praying mantis.
Yeah, dude. And the elbow, the up elbow. I think there's a picture of the up elbow. There it is. A mile away.
Absolutely a mile away.
But then DongHun Choi, he throws overhand right, bam, turns his head, left hook, which is perfect, right? Overhand right to left hook. You just go with the momentum. That left hook sets up the next overhand right, which is this one here, which completely drops him.
Flatlines him.
Flatlines him. Massive punch at flyweight. You love to see that kind of power at flyweight. I'm very excited to see what he does next because his celebration was also fucking hilarious. Right?
That they cut away from.
Yeah, they cut away from his dancing. I'd much rather see that dance than some of the other dances we've been getting, but let's not get political. And then and then when they announce him as the winner, yeah, Ramiro's about to jump in and talk a bunch of shit. But drops him, does the dance. When they announce him as the winner, there's the dance. They announce him as the winner, and he's ecstatic. But yeah, I mean, not much happened in this fight. It was very early in the fight. It was a lot of just like weird kind of motions from Kiru Sahota until he got cracked. And yeah, it was very cool. Very cool. Go says, yo, Will, I'm going to DM you something that you might be able to show in the Ximing part. Oh, interesting, because we are close to that. And then Austin says, God, that overhand had bad intentions. Choi caught a body. Yeah, I mean, that kind of power at flyweight needs to have some eyes watching this kid next. Blunderwood says, hey guys, what do you think will happen if I throw like 3 punches with my lead hand and hold it to my hip between each one and not by my chin? Praying mantis.
Yeah.
Praying mantis. Let's see.
He's awkward. But bro, come on, he's awkward.
Dude, he's awkward, and not only that, awkwardness wins fights a lot of the times. Like, especially on like regional scenes and stuff like that, you get someone who is real weird and stuff, and they can kind of skate by. Yeah, I mean,
and then they get to the UFC and everything changes. It's weird how that happens.
Yeah, it's the awkward fighters who have success stand out so much because it's so rare. Things work for a reason most of the time. But yeah, we can move on. Congrats to him for winning Road to UFC. Very interested to see what he does next. Bloodruff says the laying on the mat was pretty awkward. He's a character, man. But yeah, this is the fight that everybody's talking about. We can move on to Ming versus Feng Xiaocan. Holy shit. Talk about catching a body.
What a kick.
So first off, tail of the tape, I think Ming is 5'2", Feng Xiaocan 5'7".
Those were short fighters, but those were not the fighters.
Yeah, those were not the same short fighters. But yeah, Feng Xiaocan versus Ming, 5'2" versus 5'7".
There we are.
And man, Ming just does not look like a fighter, huh? That's first of all, I was just like,
it's like Roxanne Modafferi back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, just like, you don't think danger can come from this. I mean, and in the fight, she was struggling with the range, obviously, and she's going to struggle with the range in every single fight in the UFC because there's no atomweight division. And
yeah,
that's my biggest worry a little bit is like moving forward in the UFC. She's going to struggle because of that. It's just inherent. I wish the UFC had atomweight. Atomweight's so cool. But this fight, for most of the fight, was kind of her trying to get there with her kicks because obviously they're longer than her punches, not by much. And then Feng Xiaocan was kind of just poking her for most of the fight and disrupting her a little bit until the third round, because eventually the kicks did get there. And there's a picture of the head kick. But like you see here, she's getting stung a lot on most of the exchanges, except for this one, because she cracks her with this high kick, just crumbles her. She fell the same way Usman fell against Leon Edwards, right? Hands down, just falling like a tower. And she jumps on her, hits her with like 3 or 4 punches, right? And man, it was nasty, dude. And they cut to a shot of her. She gets up, she celebrates, and then it turns back to Feng Xiaocan on the ground. And she's out cold, and she's breathing super hard. And
she's doing the lip quiver.
Yeah, you see her lips, like her mouth is closed, and she's exhaling super hard. It was fucking scary, dude.
Gruesome.
Super gruesome. There's the picture of her knocked out, and then they cut over to Ming, and she's just standing there on the fence, and it's not cutting to commercial, and for like minutes, and then like they got the doctors in, they cut back to Feng Xiaocan, they're putting the stretcher, the neck brace, this head thing, and then it cuts back to Ming, and she's just it's like, I don't know what to do here. I feel bad.
Yeah. Because it's like if you look happy, it's like you look like an asshole.
Yeah, well, she was like tearing up in her post-fight interview.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't want to hurt someone like that, effectively. And Ghost, shout out Ghost, sent me Zhang Weili's reaction. So let me cue this up really quick. Zhang Weili watching this fight. Damn.
I love how she's just like a normal person. Like everything she does just seems like what you would expect yourself to respond to. She doesn't seem like she's trying to keep it cooler together. She's just like, oh my gosh.
Dude, I fucking love Zhang Weili. Her reaction to on Noche UFC, it was who was the crazy Irene Aldana versus Norma Dumont, where her face was like
cut.
completely carved up, and they cut to the crowd, and Zhang Weili's in the crowd, and she's just like, dude, and I'm like, God, I love Zhang Weili. She seems so cool. But yeah, that was a nasty knockout, really bad. And Ghost says, did you see her run or her Road to UFC run? She beat the supposed next Zhang Weili in the second round of the tournament, who is a better wrestler than her. I did see that. I didn't watch the entire Road to UFC, but I did see that. I mean, she just, like I said, she's going. I know a lot of people are like, she is the future off this knockout. There's a lot of people who are jumping on this train, and I understand because like she's got the full pack. She's a doctor. Her parents don't even know she's fighting in the UFC right now. Like they think she's out doing traditional like
doctor stuff.
Well, doctor stuff and like traditional martial arts stuff. Like they were like, they think she's at a tournament breaking bricks right now. They don't know she's like fighting another person for a UFC contract. Austin. Apparently her parents didn't even know she was fighting, and imagine finding out and that being the clip you see. Oh, my daughter's a killer.
I'm never letting my daughter do that again.
Yeah, we'll see. But I'm worried about the lack of atom weight. And I know Dana recently mentioned atom weight for the first time in a long time. He's like, we would like to do that eventually. It's just about finding the talent.
But it all goes back to the same thing we were talking about. Like the last 3 times we've talked about a girl fight on this episode is like there's only like 1 or 2, maybe like a handful of these girls, or at least that the UFC are willing to pick up in the locations they're willing to pick up. Like you got to fill up the rosters. Like if you're going to open up an atom, you can't open up atom weight around one singular person. It's like what they did with Ronda Rousey. Like you can't. Or Cyborg. You can't build divisions around one fighter. You gotta bring fighters.
Yeah, but I do think atomweight is special in that regard, specifically because you have people like Ximing, you have people in one championship who are very good in atomweight. You have Seika Azawa over there in Ryzen. Like, there's a lot of fighters. Torres would have been an atomweight. Michelle Waterson would have been an atom. Like, there's all these fighters.
100%.
Atomweight is very good. They can build. The problem is, can they get them all at once?
Yeah, it's much more natural. It's much more natural to find women at those lower weights than to find your Amanda Nunes's, your Chris Cyborgs, your Kayla Harrisons.
Yeah, 100%. Those are outliers. 100%.
100%.
Hey, shout out Tony. Fights with the boys. Much love, y'all. Shout out Tony. James says, did you see the post of Ximing and Wei Li training together back in 2021? Cool stuff. I did not. I'm going to have to go on a deep dive after this. Rio says, how do you think Ximing does against Sam Hughes? A fight of epic proportions and consequences. Proportions is the key word there. Yeah, it's an interesting fight. She probably wins that. Genevieve says Invicta was the first to do atomweight, right? I'm not sure. That's a good question. One I do not know the answer to. But we are an hour in, so let's go ahead and skip Carlos Hernandez versus Tumen Barral, even though that was a fun fight. Tumen Dembarral, sorry. It was a fun fight, but it's not too much to talk about. Actually, there were some cool things, but we're not going to talk about it. We're going to go to Lonnie Kavanagh versus Ochoa. This is like the hot shit prospect, right? Kavanagh.
Yeah.
Very fun striking, very fun distance awareness. Not even necessarily distance management, but distance awareness and knowing how to slide in and out. I don't know if he tried to, it seemed like maybe he was trying to force that a little bit in this fight, but you can see clips of him going hard with that and crack, bop, bop, out of range, back in range, bop, bop. Just watch some of his finishes. I thought Ochoa is also a decent prospect in this fight. They both looked very promising. This is like a futures fight almost, where you're like, both these guys I like.
I wouldn't be surprised if they fight each other again down the line.
Yeah, I could see that. There were some things that Ochoa did that I was like, he lost his fight, right? Kavanagh won by decision. It was pretty close though. But I think there's a lot that Ochoa can take from this loss, and just like tighten some things up a bit, because a lot of the times where he was getting caught is because Kavanagh is so sharp. And it really, really was apparent in some of the exchanges where I think he was 7-0. Yeah, they were both 7-0 going into this fight.
Yeah,
so maybe
they both had no losses.
Maybe he just hasn't had a reason to sharpen that stuff up because he hasn't lost, right? So this is a good, I think, like learning experience for him. But Kavanagh, man, he's sharp, dude. He's fucking sharp.
Yeah, Ochoa is probably going to take. I think the big lesson for Ochoa here is like, you can't expect the guy, your opponent, to fight a certain way. Like it seemed like he was getting really, really frustrated near the end that like Kavanagh was just like not willing to stand in the pocket and exchange like even a little bit. Like I get, like I'm sure he understood that he wasn't going to happen the whole time, but Kavanagh gave him no opportunities to like have a firefight, and that's I feel like what Ochoa wanted. And it was apparent like at the very end where he was like, like throwing his hands up, like where the hell are you going, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I feel like that's going to be the big lesson is like you can't expect the other guy to give you those opportunities. You got to make those opportunities happen.
No, that's a great point. And there was one moment in the fight where that did come to pass, where they did kind of stand there and trade, and Ochoa did get the better of that exchange where he hurt. It seemed like he hurt him to the body.
Yeah,
Commentary was
he
a
was
little
hurt.
biased. Yeah, commentary was a little biased on Kavanagh on this one, and weren't really addressing some of the successes that Ochoa was having. But in that exchange, he did hurt him to the body, and I think to your point, that probably made it even more frustrating at the end of the fight, where he was like, "I
'Cause-
know if this
Yeah,
happens, I can get him, but I can't
you
create
got to
that
make it
moment."
happen. Yeah, you got to
Yeah,
make it.
yeah, exactly. And Kavanagh is very
Ochoa's
disciplined.
body, Ochoa's body at the end of that fight looked about as red as Kavanagh's shorts.
Yeah, dude, he was chewed
That
up.
and then the arm that he was blocking those body kicks with, just
Yeah.
so destroyed.
Yeah, well, if you go back a couple pictures, Rich, there was a picture of Kavanagh landing that one right there, the high kick. Um, if we go one more forward, sorry. Um, yeah, look at that placement of the kick right on the wrist. There's a really good video to understand like high kicks and not necessarily always having to land them on the head, and that they're
Yep.
still effective even if they're blocked. If you watch, shout out Sylvie on YouTube, all the Muay Thai stuff that Sylvie does is fucking incredible. But she put out a video. It's like 10 minutes long, maybe it's longer. It's a long video with Jean-Charles Skarbowski, and he's explaining some aspects of the game, clinch fighting. But the thing that stood out to me the most in that video is him explaining high kicks and where you should be targeting, and that it's not always about kicking in the head. And if you're kicking a blocker, if you kick them low on the forearm, it's a lot easier for them to channel that and then return with a counter. But if you kick
Yep.
them right in the wrist, it's going to knock them off balance. The counter's gone, and you can follow up with something while they're off balance. Because a lot of fighting
Yeah.
is knocking off your opponent's base and capitalizing on that. And we see that with Petr Yan in the main event, where he's landing those foot sweeps, getting Figueiredo off balance so that he can land his hands. But kicking to the wrist is a huge aspect of the high kicking game, and Kavanagh fucking nasty with it.
Yep.
Nasty with it. I just thought that was a cool. But yeah, definitely check out that video, John Charles Skarbowski with Sylvie on YouTube. You just listening to experts explain anything, even if it's something that you're not even into, but listening to like an expert explain what they're an expert in, you're just like, damn, and they're articulate enough to explain it. It's
Yeah.
interesting to listen to. And John Charles is fucking a wizard, so it's cool to listen to that. But yeah, Kavanagh, yeah, he lands that wheel kick. Ochoa's got a fucking chin on him too, by the way.
Yeah.
He needs some big shots.
Both these guys have a bright future ahead of them. Like Ochoa showed a lot, Kavanagh showed a lot for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely looking forward to both these guys moving forward. We're going to move on to the last fight that we're going to cover. It was Xiaolan versus Quang Li, maybe. Banger. Absolute banger this fight was. There's not much to talk about it, but every card needs a fight like this where two guys are just swinging and banging. And Xiaolan, they were talking about Quang Li being like, I think he maybe was the favorite in this one. Yes, he was the favorite.
Well, he wasn't the favorite by the commentary team.
No.
Yeah.
But he was the favorite like going into the fight.
Yeah, by the odds, yeah.
Yeah. And Xiaolan was cracking him, dude. And he was trying to set things up and just couldn't, because Xiaolan was literally just overpowering him with his combinations. And like you said, game plan sometimes the game plan is you're gonna have to eat some shots to implement this. And Xiaolan was more than willing to eat some shots to land his. And man, he just put things together, just cracking, dude. Cracking. And eventually he fucking put him out. But it was a fun fight.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's not like anything fancy or crazy. Like it wouldn't be something that like is gonna be like the best fight of the year, but it's one of those things where like if one were to make a highlight reel of this fight, they would have a lot of footage to use. Like one does a lot of good highlight videos where they show you like every little bit of fighting. There'd be a lot to show you in this, but it wouldn't be one of those fights where like it's gonna be on any list at the end of the year.
Yeah, it'll be on this is a pretty underrated banger. This is a slept on one that probably a lot of people didn't see because it was at fucking 1:00 in the morning here. and there's not a lot of name value on it. But this is a fun fight to go back to and revisit at the end of the year or something. Just be like, oh, that was a cool one.
This would be a fight to put on like a playlist for somebody who like you're showing fighting to for the first time.
Yeah,
like this is what they want to see, like this sort of stuff.
Swinging and banging.
Yeah.
That is all we're going to talk about. Nicholas Mata against Mahashate was actually pretty good too, but we're an hour and 10 minutes in. So
and Will's tired of saying names he can't pronounce.
Exactly. I'm doing my best here, guys. Absolutely doing my best here. But let's see. What do we have? Moment of silence. Yes, Zhu versus Shibin. I probably butchered those names too. I'm not even gonna fucking try again. But that was a Road to UFC fight that got canceled. I think they're rebooking it. Would have been fun because both those guys are actually very fun fighters. And then bonuses, I believe. James says this was a banger card. Yeah, I did actually really enjoy rewatching this. I didn't watch it live, but rewatching it, I was like, that was good. Ooh, that was good. Ooh, that was a good fight too. It was pretty good. Muslim Salikhov got one for the wheel kick. And then Fernandes got one for the plus 3,000 upset submission over Wang Tong. And then Zhang Mingyang got one. I hate the pictures they shoot. We always talk about it, but like all these fights had great photos of the finishes. Like there's great like, photos of the wheel kick. There's great photos of this elbow. And they're just, where are they?
Well, it's like this same sort of thing that they do. It's the same thing they do with the stupid videos. It's like, oh, we don't want to show you the highlight of the ending of the fight, this knockout or whatever, but we'll show you in 2 weeks after everyone doesn't care about it.
Exactly. Like, yeah. But yeah, and then Xiaoman got one obviously for her murder. I believe Feng Xiaocan is okay. They said that they took her to the hospital. No fractures in the neck, nothing with her jaw or anything like that. Probably a pretty fucking gnarly concussion.
No, definitely not probably. Yeah. Like her brain's rattled.
Yeah, and there's rumors that there was a coma situation, but I don't want to say that as a fact because I haven't seen anything like official saying that. But hopefully she's all right. But that was all the bonuses. Blunderbub says, shout out to the main card for starting out with 4 big guys slapping the shit out of each other. Great way to get me to tune in. Yeah. James says the last China card was in 2019. Other than the main and co-main of that card, it was not good. Yeah, and then they had that one. It was supposed to be, I believe, Song Yadong versus Petr Yan, and then they like completely moved it like right before, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And the UFC
I remember that.
It's just
China.
Yeah. But yes, that was it. Next week, no UFC. I believe there's one Friday fights, but no like big card from the UFC. There's the PFL Tournament Championships. Dakota Chavez on that. Impakasanga. Oh, there's some good fights on there. Maybe we'll talk about that. We may take the week off because of Thanksgiving for the holidays, so we will see what happens. But
Will's got to cook dinner for everybody.
Oh yeah, big time. But yeah, keep an eye out on our socials. We'll let y'all know as soon as we know what we're doing this weekend. But if we do something, it will be on Sunday. And then Toasty, what do you got coming up, Toasty? You got a commentary gig in January?
Yeah, I got we have the San Jose Fight Night at the Tech that's happening again in December. I got a couple of my teammates on that are probably going to help out on that show. But the big thing is going to be the Central Coast Fighting Championship coming back in January. I was supposed to do commentary with John Fitch. John Fitch just pulled out. So we're either probably going to pull you or my Muay Thai coach, Jesse, to do commentary with me.
Bro, I'm down. If you need me to sub in, like you have subbed in numerous times for this show, I will sub in and do commentary with you. Would be fun as fuck.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, that's a great. But man, I can't go to the San Jose one, but I will definitely be there in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, that San Jose card's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, I know. It looks fucking awesome. The last one was awesome. This one looks good too. But yeah, if you guys are wondering, or if you're wondering what we're doing, stay in touch with us on Instagram, Twitter. That's where we are mostly, on Reddit as well. Story of the Fight on everything. But Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, Twitch, Blue Sky is popping off. We got Twitch, YouTube Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. It's just Story of the Fight. Like, subscribe, please. We're trying to break 20,000. We've kind of stagnated at 15,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So please tell your buddies, tell your moms to follow us. And if you're
tell
wondering,
your grandmas too.
Tell your grandmas too. Grandmas love us. But if you're wondering who produces the show, that is the psychic, Rich the Casual, Richard Buford. Thank you everybody for joining another week of Story of the Fight.